Greetings, it's Doc Griffin, your swing surgeon director of club fitting operations, and once again it's time for the doctor's house call. Serge has asked me to field another question that has come into us off the blog. This message is from Roy Jenkins, and it's regarding club length, and he says, "Morning Don, I was watching your video on shorter golfers swinging vertically and saw you measuring the club. Can you tell me the correct way of measuring the length of the club? Is it just the shaft or is it plus the club as well?" Then he goes on and gives some information about himself personally. "I am 5 feet 9 inches tall and my outstretched arms to the tips of the fingers from my chest is 2 feet 5 inches. Is that any help to you?" Well, Roy, let me tell you, what it is out here really, was it from here to here or here to there, it really doesn't help. What we look at when we measure golfers to get a general idea of where we start looking at club length is when they stand erect, shoulders back, hands down by the side, looking straight ahead. We measure wrist to floor of the left arm for a right-hander, and then conversely, wrist to floor of the right hand for a left-hander. This gives us a general idea. I have a chart that I go by that I use for ballparking where I want to look at lengths for different golfers based on their wrist to floor. And this is just a guideline. So let me cover this before we actually get into measuring, how to measure a club. Let's talk about how to find what is the correct club length for you. Let's start with a driver. I suggest taking the driver, going out to the range, get a bucket of balls. Either use baby powder or some kind of tape like duct tape on the face to where you can see the impact of the golf balls on the club face. You can hit 10 balls and keep hitting 10 balls until you find the length of the driver where your impact is in a centralized area. Now, I didn't say it had to be in the center of the club, and the reason I'm making that distinction is this, because a lot of people line up visually to what looks like the ball's in the center of the club when it's actually out on the toe. So all I'm saying is find the length of the driver where when you make 10 swings, 7 to 8 of those impacts with the golf ball on that club face are in a very centralized area. That's the length that you should be playing the driver. So start at full length, then choke down a ½ inch at a time until you find where you are able to control the driver and make the most consistent impact. Let's talk a moment about why club manufacturers even started making shafts lighter and longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. Let me give you an interesting tidbit. Some of you may know this, some not. The average driver length of a tour player, 44 and a half. So for that to be an average, that means that some of those guys out there making a living playing this game are playing drivers shorter than 44. And of course, there's some guys out there playing a little bit longer. DJ's driver is 44 and a half. Now, he stands 6'3". Oh, what difference does that make? Correct. Doesn't hit it with the top of his head. What's his wrist to floor? His wrist to floor is 37 inches. So again, we find where the control and impact stays the most consistent. The principle of playing a long shafted club has to do with levers. The longer the lever, the more output or work with the same amount of input. So the principle is that if you have a longer shaft, you generate more club head speed. However, the human machinery reaches a point of diminishing return where we are no longer able to swing the longer shaft and generate the same, now notice we use two different terms here, club head speed, because we're not able to generate the same swing speed. So we did a study for 2.5, almost 3 years, where we compared shorter drivers longer drivers being 45 and above, shorter being 44 and a half or below. And we compared club head speed, centerness of contact, and overall distance. In that study, for 2.5 to 3 years, I forget just how long it was, I know it was at least 2.5, we had about 6 to 7 people that could swing the longer driver and generate equal or greater club head speed than they could with the shorter driver. Of those handful of people, not one, get it, not one was able to maintain the centerness of contact on the club face, which means their ball speed diminished, which meant their overall distance was less with the longer one than it was with the shorter one. So, what does it mean? It makes more sense to play the shorter driver. Now, once you find what is the correct length for you, you have an option. You can go cut it. I don't suggest that, and here's why. For each 1/2 inch of length you cut off the butt section, you're changing the swing weight by 3 swing weights. Each swing weight is equal to 2 grams of weight. So to get it back to feel and playability that it started at, you're going to have to add 6 grams of weight for each 1/2 inch you cut off. Now, let's say you cut off 1 inch. That's 12 grams of weight. When you put 12 grams of weight back onto that club head, you have now changed the flex and frequency of that shaft and softened it up considerably. So it's just not a good thing to do for guys just to go out there and start whacking off the shafts and then putting weight back on. This is something that a certified fitter could do for you if you absolutely wanted to go that way. But there is certainly nothing wrong with, once you find where that length is for you that you get the most control, is to just put a mark on it or put a strip of tape around it and then choke it down to there. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. So consider that, gentlemen. Now, here we go to actually getting to the question of how do you measure it. So we're going to need 2 pieces of equipment. Obviously, one is a golf club. Now, when measuring for length, it is essential that you look and see that the scoring lines are running parallel to the ground, so that they're perfectly horizontal and running with the ground. You don't want it sitting up on the toe or down on the heel, because that, of course, will change how the reading comes out on length. So once you've got it sold properly, now most of you aren't going to have this, but this is a club maker's ruler. Why do they call it a club maker's ruler? Because we club makers have them. They're 48 inches long, so they're longer than a yardstick. So we're taking the club maker's ruler, bringing it right up against the back of the hosel, all the way to the ground, making sure again that the score lines are staying parallel to the ground, and then we come right up all the way to the butt end of the club, and we check it out, and this club is 36 5/8 inches long. And that's all there is to it. Take it, sole it properly, measure all the way from the ground up to the back end, to the top end, to the end of the butt. Well, that's it for me for today. As always, we appreciate your continued support. If you have any questions, please feel free to email them in or give us a call. And as always, remember, better golf is just a fit away.